Everyone thinks this quarterback draft is already decided. One name locked at number 1. No debate, no doubt. But what if that's completely wrong? What if teams are about to pass on the best quarterback in this class without even realizing it? Because once you see the film, this entire QB1 conversation starts to fall apart. Subscribe for daily NFL drama, breaking news, and viral draft updates you don't want to miss. Everyone has already made up their mind about this quarterback class. The name at the top? Fernando Mendoza. For months, the narrative has been locked in. He's the safe pick, the polished prospect, the guy most likely to go number 1. Analysts repeat it. Mock drafts confirm it. And slowly it stopped being a debate and started becoming a conclusion. Beyond the surface, the conversation starts to shift. Because some analysts and even a few scouts have quietly pointed out something unusual. When you turn on the tape, it's actually hard to find games where Mendoza completely takes over. Not manages, not supports, takes over. The kind of performance where you walk away saying, that guy won them the game. Instead, what you often see is a quarterback operating within structure, executing what's asked, playing his role well. And that's not a bad thing, but it does raise a bigger question about projection. Because in the NFL, especially for a number 1 pick, you're not drafting a system player, you're drafting someone who can elevate everything around him. Some fans believe Mendoza's success is tied heavily to the system he played in. Others argue that efficiency is exactly what you want. But either way, this QB1 lock label suddenly doesn't feel as solid as it once did. And that's when the conversation quietly starts to change. Because once teams start asking what Mendoza hasn't shown, another name begins to look a lot more dangerous. Simpson wasn't supposed to be in this conversation, not at the start of the season, not when the early mock drafts came out. Back then, his name was mentioned but never at the top. He wasn't the headline, he wasn't the safe pick, and he definitely wasn't QB1. But then the season happened. And slowly, without the noise or hype, Simpson started changing the conversation. Not through flashy headlines, but through what showed up on tape. Week after week, he began doing something that's hard to ignore. He took control of games, not just managing drives, not just playing within the system, but stepping up in moments where everything depended on him. When his team needed a play, he delivered. When things broke down, he didn't panic, he responded. And against stronger competition, those moments became even more obvious. You could turn on games against tough defenses and see it clearly. Simpson wasn't just participating, he was the reason his team stayed in it. That's where evaluators started to take notice. Because in college football, there's a difference between quarterbacks who benefit from structure and quarterbacks who create something when structure fails. Simpson began showing signs of the second type, and once that shows up on film, it's hard to unsee. Reports suggest some scouts began quietly moving him up their boards, not publicly, not dramatically, but internally the conversation was shifting, because the more you watched, the harder it became to ignore what he was doing under pressure. And suddenly, the question wasn't whether Simpson belonged in the first round. It was whether teams had been overlooking him this entire time. And once you look at how he handles pressure, that's when this debate really starts to flip. This is where the conversation stops being about hype and starts being about reality. Because when NFL teams evaluate quarterbacks, there's one question that matters more than anything else. What happens when everything breaks down? Pressure reveals everything. And when you compare these two quarterbacks in those moments, the difference becomes hard to ignore. Simpson on tape shows something scouts value at the highest level: control under chaos. When the pocket collapses, he doesn't immediately panic. He keeps his eyes downfield. He stays patient just long enough to find a real throw, not just an escape. That's rare. Because most college quarterbacks, when pressure hits, default to survival mode. And that's where some concerns around Fernando Mendoza begin to surface. There are moments, noticeable ones, where instead of resetting and reading the field, he drops his eyes early. The play shifts from a passing opportunity to a reaction. A scramble looks more comfortable in those uncomfortable moments. He processes faster, he trusts what he sees, and most importantly, he gives plays a chance to develop even when things aren't perfect. And that's the difference between surviving pressure and beating it. For some scouts, that alone is enough to shift their evaluation. Because when games are on the line, when defenses are closing in, when everything speeds up, that's when real quarterbacks separate themselves. And suddenly, this isn't just about talent anymore. Because once you realize who stays calm under pressure, you start to see who's actually built for Sundays. At some point, every quarterback evaluation comes down to one simple question: what translates to the NFL and what does? Because not all throws are created equal. When you break down the film, Ty Simpson is consistently asked to make what scouts call NFL throws. We're talking about deep in breaking routes, tight window crossers, layered throws over linebackers, timing-based sideline shots. These are not easy completions. These are throws that require anticipation, arm strength, and precision all at once. And more importantly, they require trust in your reads. Simpson shows that over and over again. Now compare that to Fernando Mendoza's situation. His offense, while effective, leans heavily into structure. Quick reads, RPO concepts, one or two primary options, get the ball out fast, keep things clean, and again, that's not a flaw, it works at the college level, it wins games. But here's the issue. The NFL doesn't operate like that. Windows are tighter, defenders are faster, and systems don't protect you the same way. Quarterbacks are expected to create throws, not just execute them. And when evaluators watch Mendoza's tape, some feel there just aren't enough examples of him being forced into those high-difficulty, high-risk situations. Simpson, on the other hand, has already lived there. He's been tested in those moments, he's had to make those throws, and even when he doesn't hit them perfectly, the willingness to attempt them tells scouts everything they need to know about his projection. Because it's not just about what you can do, it's about what you've been asked to prove. And right now, one quarterback has a much clearer translation to Sundays. Because once teams start betting on what translates, the gap between these two might be bigger than anyone expected. If there's one trait that quietly separates good quarterbacks from elite ones, it's this: processing. Not arm strength, not athleticism, processing. What you see before the snap, and more importantly, what you do after it. And this is where things start to get really interesting. Ty Simpson shows clear evidence of both. Pre-snap, he reads defenses, identifies pressure, and understands where his opportunities are. But what really stands out is what happens after the ball is snapped. When defenses rotate, disguise coverage, or take away the first option, Simpson adjusts. He doesn't freeze, he doesn't guess, he reacts with purpose. That's a big deal. Because in the NFL, the first read is often a trap. Defenses are designed to bait quarterbacks into mistakes, and if you can't process information quickly after the snap, you're already behind. Now, when it comes to Fernando Mendoza, the picture is a little less clear. He shows strong pre-snap awareness. He understands structure, alignment, and where the ball should go based on the design of the play. But when it comes to post-snap processing, there just aren't as many examples on tape. Not because he can't do it, but because he hasn't consistently been asked flashes of that ability. And when evaluators see that, it changes everything. Because processing isn't something you easily teach, it's something you either have or you don't. And that's where this debate starts to shift in a serious way. Because once teams trust a quarterback's ability to process, they're no longer drafting potential, they're drafting control. Here, where things take a turn from film to reality. Because no matter how good a player looks on tape, the draft doesn't always follow logic, it follows perception. And right now, the perception around Fernando Mendoza hasn't changed, he's still expected to go number one. That's the consensus, that's what teams are signaling, that's what the league believes will happen. But behind the scenes, it's not that simple. Ty Simpson's name keeps showing up in conversations that matter. Not publicly, not loudly, but quietly in draft rooms, in scouting reports, in late-night discussions. Reports suggest multiple teams picking in the middle of the first round are seriously evaluating him, not as a backup plan, but as a real option. Teams like the New York Jets, Minnesota Vikings, and even the Arizona Cardinals have been loosely connected to quarterback decisions. And while nothing is confirmed, some believe Simpson could be the kind of player a team targets if they're willing to take a calculated risk. Because that's what this comes down to. Mendoza represents stability, a safer projection, the kind of pick that doesn't raise eyebrows on draft night. But Simpson, he represents upside, uncertainty, the possibility that you're getting something much bigger than expected or something that takes time to develop. And that's where front offices get tested. Do you follow the board, or do you trust your evaluation? Because if even one team decides Simpson is their guy, everything changes. He doesn't slide, he doesn't wait, he jumps. And suddenly the entire draft order starts shifting around a decision most people didn't see coming. And that's the part nobody can predict. Because all it takes is one team to believe, and this quarterback race could flip in a matter of minutes. In the NFL, the draft is not just about talent, it's about fitting the mold. And that's where the prototype bias comes in. Teams have a checklist: height, arm strength, college system, even style of play. If you don't fit it, no matter how good you are, doubts start creeping in. Ty Simpson is a prime example. Some teams see his 6'1" frame and immediately compare him to the ideal quarterback: taller, stronger, more prototypical. But tape tells a different story. Simpson consistently makes NFL-level throws under pressure, reads defenses post-snap, and carries his team when it matters most. Yet the bias lingers. Scouts whisper, he's not the classic mold. Analysts second-guess, fans overlook him. Contrast that with Fernando Mendoza. Taller, bigger, and playing in a system designed for success, he fits the prototype perfectly. And because of that, the perception of risk is lower, even if the actual upside might be smaller. It's a subtle but dangerous trap, teams betting on the mold over the player. What does this mean for the draft? One team willing to ignore the prototype and trust film over measurements could completely rewrite expectations. Simpson's stock isn't just about performance, it's about perception, and that perception may finally be challenged. Because sometimes the draft isn't about who's best, it's about who dares to ignore the mold, and that could change everything. Every draft prospect carries risk, but some risks are invisible, those teams won't admit aloud. For quarterbacks like Ty Simpson, it's not about talent. It's about durability, adaptability, and whether he can handle the unexpected. Scouts see the tape, but he's young, has limited starting experience, and questions linger. Can he consistently deliver at the NFL level? Can he survive the grind of a full 17-game schedule? Contrast this with prospects in safe systems, players groomed in NFL-style offenses, surrounded by elite talent. The risk looks smaller, the margin of error feels forgiving. That's why boards can be misleading. The safer pick rises, the high-upside player sometimes slides. But one team willing to embrace calculated risk and trust what the tape really shows could land a franchise quarterback and rewrite expectations. The risk isn't always a red flag. Sometimes it's a hidden opportunity waiting to explode. Because in the NFL, risk isn't just danger, it's the difference between playing it safe and changing the game forever. The NFL draft is more than numbers, it's about risk, timing, and vision. Ty Simpson's talent is undeniable, but limited experience and pressure moments make him a calculated gamble. Teams weigh upside against safety, and sometimes the safest pick isn't the one who changes a franchise. Yet the team willing to trust tape, instincts, and potential could land a quarterback who redefines expectations. In football, the difference between ordinary and legendary is often a single bold choice. Because in the NFL, the right risk can turn a gamble into greatness.